beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lauren and welcome. Today we are doing the second video in our February series, kind of talking about dating and relationships in honor of Valentine's Day, you know, hoopla hoopla. But if you haven't watched last week's video, I suggest going to watch it. It was pros and cons on waiting for marriage, and today's video is tips for waiting for marriage. And this is both for the person in a relationship and the single person. Neither one is wrong, but these are tips from me to you, because I've been in both seasons of life and this is what I would suggest. However, a little bit of a backstory on my husband and I. Now, we started dating in the middle of the pandemic, I think, like right the summer after it started, so pretty close afterwards. And we hit it off pretty quick. But at that time, when we first started dating, for about the first 6 to 8-ish months of us dating, I was living with my parents at the time. And then afterwards, I had moved to an apartment with a roommate. And there was a lot of times where Austin and I were alone. And things could have happened. And these are just my tips to the people in those situations on, like, hey, we're actively trying to not do that thing. So, here's some ideas. Now, if you are, I'm going to start with the people in the relationship just because we've started kind of there. So I've got a whole list here. Things that we did and that I would suggest you doing in a relationship. One, put God first, because that's where everything stems from. And if you're not doing that, then something's bound to go wrong. And this is if you're a Christian. Obviously, this is a little tainted view if you're not a Christian but you're still waiting. Some of these are still going to be good tips for you, but they may not be necessarily stuff you would do because of Jesus. So anyways, number one, get right with Jesus and like make sure you guys are on the same page. Number two, set boundaries and expectations early. And when I say early, I mean early. Like I'm going to say, like, our first date, we went out to this restaurant and then we went for a walk afterwards, and I remember sitting him down and being like, okay, what do you want from this? And he was like, oh, what do you mean? This is an intimidating question, and some people are going to disagree with this, but this is just what worked for me. I straight up asked him, I was like, what do you want out of this? What do you want? Because at that time I was in a position where I was tired of playing games. I was tired of doing the like run around with boys. And I was like, you know what? If you're not on the same page as me, I don't even want to start dating you, because then it's just a waste of our time. And I was tired of wasting my time on people who weren't my husband. If I'm just being frank, that's what I was tired of. And so I would say set expectations and boundaries early. Pretty soon after I asked that question, I asked, okay, so I am waiting. How do you feel about this? And he was very quick to be like, oh no, I completely agree with that. I don't want to beforehand either. Like, I'm same page. And so it was much easier because we were both coming at it from the same expectation to be like, okay, this is what we're cool with, this is what we're not cool with. And then we set personal boundaries from there. And personal boundaries are personal boundaries. Some people are okay with kissing before they get married. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people aren't okay with kissing before they get married, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you have to kind of figure out, like, that's one example, but like, you kind of have to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and what are things, and this is gonna sound so crazy, but you have to figure out kind of like, hey, that got really heated for me. And you have to communicate that to your partner in a way that's like, that got really heated for me. While that was enjoyable, in order to pave the way for us to continue to wait, maybe we should stop doing that until we're married. Like, whatever that is, whether that's like holding hands, or like, this was a super weird one for me. He couldn't touch my back Why? I don't know. I asked him very kindly. I was like, listen, you can't touch my back. And he was like, what? And sometimes they're weird things, and sometimes they're not. Like, sometimes there's really obvious things, like, you know, I'm not gonna get too like in depth there, but set boundaries, be realistic, set expectations, etc. Number 2, check in with each other. Like, ask each other, like, hey, you know, there's a situation and then it got a little weird and I want to make sure you were good. And like, be communicating with each other, because otherwise you're not knowing what the other person is thinking, and then you guys get in a situation and then it's not a good situation. Number 4? I think we're at number 4 now. I didn't number these, clearly. Number 4, I would say go out. Like, we went out, like literally go out on dates, go for walks. I've got, by my apartment, there's like a walking trail. And so we would walk a lot of times. We would go out and not like be cooped up in my apartment or cooped up in my parents' house. And it was easier with like living with my parents, because obviously there were some things that were like, my parents are here. And then when I moved out and I got a roommate, and there were some times where we were alone, it was like, oh, we have to figure out what to do, and what to do cannot be each other. So what are we gonna do? And so sometimes we would go out for like ice cream, or just go driving around, or, well, not necessarily, because gas prices were crazy high then, so we didn't go driving around a lot. But like, we went walking and did certain things. There's lots of date ideas out there. Seriously, just go type in Pinterest, like, date ideas, and there's like bowling and all this kind of stuff, picnics, that are like cheap date ideas that you don't need to like, you don't need me to tell you date ideas. Number 5, I think, is that we strived for genuine purity and righteousness, but never perfection. We never strived for perfection. We only ever strived after the heart of God. And truly, if you're a Christian couple, I'm sure you've seen the illustration where it's a triangle and it's God at the top and you and him down at the bottom. And then if you're going closer to Christ, obviously you're going closer together. But in all seriousness, purity and righteousness is a mindset. And if you are not genuinely pure, if you're not genuinely pursuing purity in your relationship with Christ, then the rest of your relationships, your romantic ones included, will falter from it. So while nobody is perfect, and Austin and I certainly weren't perfect, every time that we fell or we crossed boundaries that we were definitely not okay with, every single time we took it to the feet of Jesus. And that's what we did for it. Were we perfect? No. We're not saints, but we were 2 people who were actively seeking the will of God, and that's really what you need. Next one, so the next 2 go hand in hand. If you are dating, that sort of a thing, and you're looking for things to help with that, get a dog and get engaged. I'm dead serious. So we got engaged, and then like maybe a month later we got our dog Noelle, and I love Noelle. She's my best friend. But when we got her, I was so already stressed out with wedding stuff. Like, just a month into the engagement, we were stressed out with wedding stuff, and then we got a dog, and so I didn't have time to like figure out certain things. Like, we basically had to learn how to co-parent with a dog because we didn't live together. So like, he took the dog some days, I took the dog some days. We had to make sure that we were like, she went out for walks and she did this and she did that. And so it was actually really helpful getting a dog prior to marriage, because it made you think about it, and it made you be in situations where like the dog ate our shoes because she was a puppy and one of us freaked out. And so it's like, it helps you to evaluate what that person will do as a parent, and it helps you to think, oh, do I really want to parent with this person? You know what I mean? And so it was really helpful, and I think that it brought up conversations in our relationship that we would not have had we not had a dog. Which probably doesn't make sense, but like it's the most responsibility you can have without having a baby. And if we're not doing the things that are required to have a baby, we can't have a baby, so we get a dog. And she was a wedding present. She was not something that we'd really planned on getting, not for a while anyways, but she taught us both so much about each other, about working together, about all of that. And not only that, but like while we were engaged, I was so stressed out with the wedding planning that the thought of being intimate or the thought of initiating something that we shouldn't have been doing anyways, it went away a lot faster because I was underneath so much stress. So getting a dog and getting engaged, they actually help. And yeah, if you're waiting, things you can do. Anyways. So moving on. If you're single, my suggestions for if you're single: number one, get right with Jesus. This is the same number one as if you're dating, because the truth is, if you're not right with Jesus prior to you going into a relationship, what makes you think that you're suddenly going to get it all together? Like, how a relationship isn't going to fix it. Whoever you're dating is not perfect. They're not the Messiah. So like, you're not going to be able to find full satisfaction of that. I'll tell you this as a married woman. I love my husband wholeheartedly. He is my best friend. He is my teammate. He rocking and rolling with him. Love it. He is not my everything. He is not my God. And my life didn't immediately hit peak the second I became Lauren Lapointe. Like, marriage did not satisfy all things, and it won't satisfy all things. It can't. Not that I don't love my husband, not that I'm not satisfied in my marriage, but like, he can't literally be God to me, and he will never be God to me. It's just the truth of it. However, if I have my relationship right with Jesus, then my relationship with my husband automatically gets better. So if you are single, my suggestion is to get yourself right with Jesus, genuinely right with Jesus. Not like, oh, okay, yeah, a little bit good with Jesus. No, I mean like, you're saved, you're actively serving in a ministry, you're actively like pursuing Christ in all that you do, right? Purity doesn't start when you get in a relationship. Purity starts the second you commit to being a Christian. Like, purity is not intended to be the second you're starting to date somebody and now you have to think about purity. No, purity is constantly doing that, constantly being in the mindset of like, this is what Christ wants for me. This is pure, this is right amongst the Lord. And that's what purity is. Purity has nothing to do with relationships. I mean, is there purity amongst relationships? Sure, but that's not the point of it. Anyways, next, and this is going to be controversial because I did not follow my own advice here, but I wish I had. Do not date until you are ready to get married. You will just end up hurting yourself and others more than necessary. Because if you are not both genuinely dating for marriage, one of you is going to be hurt because you have wrong expectations. And that goes into my next point. Do not date until you have yourself together. And what I mean by that is, if you're a people pleaser, if you're figuring out like what your values are, if you're figuring out certain things in your life, don't be dating, because they will have an influence. Like, whoever you are dating will have an influence on those choices that you make, and you have to be able to make those choices for yourself, right? Like, for instance, I'm a people pleaser. Gonna just go ahead and say that out loud. I'm a people pleaser, and for a long time it was really hard for me to make certain choices or say certain things, or I'll even put it this way, like, I don't look good in skinny jeans. I don't. Skinny jeans do not look good on my figure, but everybody's wearing them and I want to be cool, so I want to put on skinny jeans, right? I needed to have time to grow up and go, you know what, I don't look good in skinny jeans. Let me find something else. And I say that ironically, as the only jeans I have that are clean right now are my skinny jeans, and that's what I'm wearing. But my point is, my point is, you have to be able to figure out where you're standing on certain major topics like religion, politics, you know, like, what is bravery? Are you gonna be okay with not standing up for what's right or for what's wrong? Like, you have to be able to figure these things out on your own before you get into a relationship, especially if your opinion is easily swayed. So figure yourself out. Next, going in hand with the next one, figure out what you want in life and don't settle for less. In all seriousness, figure out if you want kids, because some people don't want kids, and there's nothing wrong with not wanting kids. There is something wrong with shaming those who do want kids, and there is something wrong with shaming those who don't want kids, but there's nothing wrong if you personally don't want kids because of whatever reason. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. So you have to figure out if you want kids, and you have to figure that out before you get in a relationship, because if you start to think about that after you're in a relationship, let's say the guy that you're dating wants 15 children. You don't even know if you want one child, let alone 15. Like, you can't, not a good situation to be in. So figure out if you want kids, roughly how many you want. You don't have to like pick out their names or anything, but like, you know, have a general idea of where you want your life to go, or like what goals you have in your career, or if you want to be a stay-at-home mom one day, or if you want to, I don't know, go and travel to Antarctica, or whatever it is you want to do and your personal life goals. You have to figure out those things ahead of time so that when you are sitting down with somebody and going, hey, these are my life goals, we're gonna see if they align so that see if we're good meshed for a relationship, then you know where you're standing on things and you're not just going, oh yeah, me too, I like spaghetti too, I like the movies too. Like, you're able to have real conversations about things. Next thing. Ooh, this is one that I struggled with for a long time, and then I made a mistake or two on a few times. So please learn from my mistake. Date a Christian. In all seriousness, date a Christian, and date a Christian who has the same values and goals as you, because while you do need somebody who challenges you, you don't want to be fighting to wait for marriage and have it constantly be a fight with the person that you're dating. You just don't. Because if you're dating a Christian and they are genuinely going, hey, I want this out of life too, let's strive after this together, then you're able to work on it together. When one of you is in the mood, the other one can be like, hey, that's not what we're doing here, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So I would say, in all genuineness, date a Christian. I know everybody says that, but my reasoning is very simple in the fact that if you are striving for purity and for waiting for marriage, and he is not or she is not, that's not going to work. Ask me how I know. Praise the Lord that Jesus saved my virginity for my wedding night. However, it did make it easy. There were certainly situations and times where that could have been a different case. Had I picked somebody else, it wouldn't have been the case. Learn from my mistakes. Anyways, ooh, and the last one is really, I think it's a good one, and I put it down because I think I personally needed to do this prior to being married and meeting Austin. I would say go to therapy. Seriously. Do some like deep reflective work on yourself. Figure out why you do certain things, why you are the way that you are, stuff like that, because that stuff, one, it comes from like your parents, like you learn traits from the people who raised you, but two, If there's stuff that you need to work out, you want to work it out before you get into a serious relationship, my advice is seriously to go to therapy. Whether you think that you need it or not, maybe you only go for a few sessions and, hey, I went to therapy, you know, I figured out that behaviorally I have these tics and this is why I act this way, and And maybe you do it just simply to be a better person, or maybe you do it because you actually have stuff that you need to sort out. Whether or not, whatever the case is, my suggestion is still go to therapy. So that was a lot all at once. If you liked this video, if it was helpful, please like and subscribe down below, and hopefully you got some good tips. But I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.